Good evening and welcome to Slam the Gavel, the show that tells it all regarding family court and other court issues along with CPS. I'm your host, Marianne Petrie, and today I've got a great guest. I know her. Her name is Jacqueline Pidanick. She has gone to school for paralegal studies at South Carolina University and studied law at Purdue. And she's also run the hashtag Beloud for 6 years, telling people how to place light on all the corruption. And we're going to talk a lot on different topics: court abuse, legal abuse, immunity, things like that. So how are you doing? I know your voice isn't up to par, but we'll do our best.
Yes, I feel great. It's just always the tail end, your voice goes.
Okay. So now, what prompted you to start the hashtag Beloud movement? Because it's all over Facebook.
Yes. Well, actually just going through it, nobody knows this exists until you go through it. And it's because they smother you with all these orders to keep you quiet. And nobody can actually tell the truth. So when I went through the process of family court and how they try to manipulate the scenario to cause you to either, one, lose your children, or two, pin the parents against each other to create a bad guy, good guy, so they can continue taking money from you, I realized that I wasn't wrong. A lot of people in Beloud go through lawyers after lawyers. I had one for 1 year and I fired him. And I said, I know what I did was right. So if you can't get this for me, which is just a win, then obviously something's wrong with the court, not me. And he didn't like that I was confident enough to know that. So if I can teach the parents to be confident enough in the law or how to handle themselves, they will back down. And in every case that I help, they have.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's hard to have people tell their stories and how many attorneys they have hired. Some people have gone through, I don't know. I heard of someone going through 20 attorneys. I don't know if that's possible, but
yeah, at that point, it's not you, it's them. And you have to realize that if one lawyer, like, I never did anything wrong. I have no criminal record. I saved my daughter the night that my ex abused her. I didn't do anything wrong by saving her life. Like, you don't need to tell me what the constitutional law is or what the Constitution states. I know saving her life was the right thing to do, but thank you, because the way they talk to you is like, you were wrong. No, I don't need your validation, but thank you. Mm-hmm. So if you did what you did was right, it's them. So the next thing I had to figure out, what are they doing and why? And then the logical thing to do was to go into law school and just kick their butt.
Mm-hmm. And that's what you did.
Mm-hmm.
So, and how stressful is all that? Because you had a lot going on. And
well, my will.
Mm-hmm.
People have to have will. And when I meet a parent that says to me, I just can't do it, it's too much. I'm also a personal trainer. So my ability to motivate there. I'm not going to say it's okay. I'm not going to tell somebody that's trying to do 20 crunches and they can't, that it's okay. You should be able to do some. You should be able to do some work in this law scenario. Mm-hmm. It's debilitating. It's hard, but there's no other way. You're going to have to step up and do it, because once you get motivated and empowered, they start to get scared because they don't want to be too loud. Even though they know that it's going to be hard for you to get help, people start asking questions, and they rather give you your child than have you loud when someone over there they can go after. Mm-hmm. And that's what I teach parents. And it's really hard because they'll keep telling me, I just can't. It makes me sick. There is no other way. There's no lawyer. They're too afraid. Mm-hmm. We are so boggled down by our own cases that we can't help you, even though I try to help everybody can. But the stress level of that is huge because, you have children, you have your own case. I'm in school, I'm working a full-time job, and I'm trying to help people. But it's a will that people need. And it's hard. It's hard. I know I'm special because I don't see it that much, but I don't mm-hmm. see any other way to succeed.
Mm-hmm. Well, I also think parents are scared. They're just, mm-hmm. Or they're not the kind that can represent themselves. It takes a certain individual that can go pro se. Do you think? Or
well, yeah, but either could I. I mean, if you ask me 7, 8 years ago, if I would be in a courtroom telling off a judge, I would say, heck no. Are you kidding me? I would have been so scared. But it's behind the empowerment, knowing what to do. People change, but the will you're going to have to dig deep and find. I did, and I found it through hyperventilation and tears that the law system was upside down than what I knew.
Mm-hmm. Tell us about your law professors in, was it Purdue?
Purdue. Okay, so Purdue's chancellor, if we have to go political party, is more liberal. So knowing that, in my opinion, they are okay with crime.
Yeah,
So
right.
I didn't know how this was going to go. But when I got in there, I was putting those professors to the wall, and I was not going to back down and hear any BS about what was happening in our court system. But I found out that all my professors were conservatives. They all knew. They even taught me what was happening in the courtroom. And what was really cool is they were teaching me how to handle it. And the way I was handling it was absolutely the right way. The system will not help you because the system is in on it. Officials will not help you because they're in on it. They get a percentage of money from it. It's a ladder. So what you have to do is get the public in on it, because they don't want to lose their jobs, and they don't want you asking questions because they won't be reelected. I'm talking about officials. So they'll have you quieted, and they'll go after somebody else. If they can lose one and get 10, they'd rather do that. Even though I want nobody hurt, but we got to do what we can do until the system catches up with what's happening.
It's like they have a quota they have to meet.
Mm-hmm. They get used to it after 20 years of doing this. They've gotten used to it. So now they just assume, and then they want more. It's agreed.
Do you think they should be rotating judges in and out of family court, or have a judge take that on as his career or her career, for the rest of their career? I guess is what I'm trying to say.
Okay, this is a hard question. This is why. So I have sat in other people's courtrooms. I've sat outside the courthouse and asked people as they came out what happened in the courtroom. So I really did my homework on this. And I'm going to tell you that in my courthouse and a few others that are outside my realm, the administrating judge is the puppeteer. Like he's pulling the strings, because no matter what other judge you get underneath them, they always go like this. Well, we'll issue a ruling in 2 days, because they have to go ask the administration and the administrating judge if it's going to be okay what they're going to rule. And I've sat in courtrooms where that happens, where the transcript is completely opposite to the verdict, because the judge that was the guest judge knew everything, all the laws. She was totally for the victim. And then something switched, which is the administrating judge, and she came back with a false verdict. And it was easy to appeal because it didn't match the hearing.
Mm-hmm.
So we had an emergency stay, and that means that the child could not go with the other parent, because emergency stays will stop any monies or visitations. So we ended up appealing it, and we just tied it up in appeals until they gave up, the bad parent. I mean, that's what we have to do. It's a game. It's not really like who wins. And I can't tell you how many people on Facebook go to me, well, you didn't win any of your cases. I said, what was the ultimate goal of my cases? To have my daughter, have my ex away from her, and I get the support. So I have my daughter, I get support, my ex is away from her.
Mm-hmm.
So
Mm-hmm.
it won't happen in court, because 10 to 1, they'll never admit it. They'll never admit it, because then the court's at fault, and they have to go back and they start having damages from other people. They'll never admit it. Some people get through the courts and they can do it, but it's such a slim percentage. And how can I teach 55,000 parents to do that? It's not going to work. Mm-hmm. So this is my alternative, Beloud.
Mm-hmm. What do you do with these judges? And they're all in collusion with, it seems like, the opposing attorney that you're up against. Mm-hmm. And you can't recuse the judge. He won't do it. And plus, if you recuse them, then you got to appeal that, and that could take months into your case.
I drive me crazy.
It's then you've got to deal with this cantankerous fellow that, it's just going to make your life miserable because you asked for a recusal.
Mm-hmm. Well, what I tell victims is that you've got to recant every law they break. You have to do a motion to notify the court of every law that's broken, and you've got to do an affidavit and send it to 100 people, because there'll be one non-corrupt person in those 100 people you send it to, as long as they're, officials, whatever, paralegals, courts. You'll always bump into one that'll say, hey, what are you doing? This isn't right. And it's hard, but it'll happen. So what I would do is I would file every day an affidavit for a year. I filed every day. I didn't care how tired I was. I stayed up all night, filed every time they broke a law until the judge couldn't take it anymore. And the next judge said that my first judge, Mr. Fuge, recused himself so far he jumped off the Beaufort Bridge.
Wow.
Because I sued him. I kept writing up everything he was doing wrong. I wrote affidavit after affidavit after affidavit. I contacted the police. I contacted the state police. I contacted FBI. I sat in the field house. I kept going. I didn't care if people told me no. I just kept going.
Well, that's perseverance. That's a lot of strength.
That's loud. You got to be loud.
That's
I mean,
loud.
now
Yeah.
I can get parents to help, but back then I was it.
Mm-hmm. And that's stressful.
Mm-hmm.
Geez. Okay. So, who, as far as court abuse, as we were even just still talking about court abuse, and, these forced adoptions absolutely drive me crazy. So, who is in on it with these forced adoptions?
Well, we all know. Well, I think we all know it's a law from Bill Clinton's years in office that will give the reins to the court to determine a good situation or a bad situation. There's a kickback to the judges if they remove a child from a said bad situation. So, like I was telling you earlier, we cannot pay people for good behavior because they'll just manipulate it. And when somebody's acting in what's considered the best interest, they're less likely to be scrutinized. Because the judge will put, well, that was the best interest. Well, because he created this scenario. How they do it is you have a narcissistic ex-husband or ex-wife, and you have an empathy ex-wife or ex-husband. And what they'll do is they'll always rule for the bad guy, because the wife or the husband will keep coming for the child. That creates money. And then also the abuse gets so bad with the bad guy, the bad parent. So now the judge has to remove that child because now there's questions. But he won't put the child with the good parent because they've already been deemed bad. So now it goes in foster care, and they get paid for that. Now, they get paid whether that foster care family keeps the child or not. So if that foster family doesn't want the child or gives it back for some reason, which is terrible because it's not a dog, it goes to another one, and they get paid each time that kid's placed. That's why there's so much rotation with families and foster care. And that's also why they push adoptions. There's more money in it. There's also human trafficking. And they sell children. We have what's called in Beaufort County, little boy W, which was not found when he was supposed to be given back to his parents. And no one has ever found him because he's human trafficked. So when they tell me, Jackie, what you're saying is slander, tell me where little boy W is, and I'll tell you, I'll retract. And that'll never happen because you don't know.
That's so sad. That is so sad. Also, I've heard that they'll place a child in foster care, and it could be a nice home that they're in, we'll say. Then they'll suddenly take that kid out and move him into another home.
That's because they get money for every placement. That's why there's so much rotation.
So
they're scamming.
Okay, so I mean, I feel CPS should be abolished. I don't know how you feel about that.
Oh yeah, they serve no purpose. So should Gales and so should DSS. It's the same stuff. They just for profit for themselves. It's for manipulation for sport. There's no reason for it.
That is for sure, because they just keep doing it. And I don't know if you saw on Facebook the caseworkers. I can't call them social workers because a lot of them don't have that social work degree. They usually just have some rinky-dink childhood development degree. But they were all wearing hot pink t-shirts that in the back said something about where is your child? Something like that. Do you know where your child is? It was something like that.
Yeah, something about kidnappers on the front too, I think that said.
Yes,
Like
yes.
like legalized kidnappers or something like that. But you know, you can hire anybody that has an education, because all they say is, well, we need to educate these people, like we need to educate judges. And I think that is the stupidest thing in the world, because don't you think a judge that's 70 years old knows what abuse is? He
Yeah.
knows. They don't care. It's the same for the social worker. You just said they're getting paid so much money, and they're to do this, or they're getting threatened to do this, that they don't care. They don't care. They know exactly what they're doing. It has nothing to do with training. They just get paid to do it, and there's no repercussions. So why should they care?
Hmm.
The oversights do not work because, like I said, it's a ladder. They're all in on it. They all benefit. It's a money train.
So like even the legislators and your senators, it seems people are writing letters to these people with no response.
They know what's going on, and if you get them face to face, they'll say, "Okay, I'll do something," but they won't help. This is such a powerful thing, and because the family court whole scheme is just a small part of the huge money made off of human trafficking for the world. And this is stuff that I wouldn't go too deep in because it just freaks me out. But it has to do with both. So with all these billions and billions of dollars that are coming in from human trafficking, which comes out of our little court, which is a small little problem in the big human trafficking scheme, they're afraid. Our officials are afraid because they kill people. There's too much power there. And so I
Hmm.
get it, but I don't know how to end this if everybody's afraid. I'm not. I've walked around with an X on my back for 7 years, and I know it, but I'm a parent. That's a child. It's kind of my job.
Hmm. Hmm. A lot of parents, sometimes you have a 14 or 15-year-old and you're suddenly going through family court, and it will drag out to the point where the judge will give the opposing narcissist the custody, and then the kid ages out.
Mhm.
Then the kid ends up hating you, the other
Yeah. Mhm.
parent.
Well, that's narcissism. Like they're able to manipulate, and the child is too young to understand the mental repercussions of that. They don't understand narcissism. My daughter, unfortunately, being 7, I've taught her so much about narcissism and personality disorders that she can pick it out from the lineup. And she also knows jujitsu, and she also knows how to take care of herself at 7, because there are no police, there are no judges, there are no lawyers that will save her life. She has to count on herself. And at 7, she already knows that.
Mm-hmm.
That's pretty sad. But as to what to do, I mean, it eventually the child will realize it. They will realize it. But they're too young to make that determination themselves as to why their dad or mother is saying what they're saying to them.
Mm-hmm.
Like I
And
have an older son that was there at the incident. So I don't have to try to get Olivia to believe me. My son told her without my permission because she asked where her daddy was. And
mm-hmm.
I don't blame him. So she already believes me. I didn't have to manipulate that scenario, nor would I, but it was because there was a witness. With these guys, there's no witnesses. They just manipulate, and the child doesn't know better yet.
Well, it's also pretty sad that you've got these opposing attorneys that are narcissistic, and
Mhm.
it can almost even turn into like it turns into a personal battle with
Yes.
the pro se who's representing themselves.
Hmm.
And
Yes. I just started suing the attorneys. If you got in my way and you were outside the color of the law, I'd sue you, whether I won or not. It wasn't a matter about that. It was just making your life hard to realize that that's a line you're not going to cross again. And that's
Mhm.
what I have to teach parents. Everybody, I sued the gal, I sued the judge, I sued the police officers, I sued SLED officers, I sued everybody. I had 8 lawsuits in 1 week. They were all valid. They were all valid. But if you don't go that extra mile to make them shell out money from their pockets, because I sued them in their own capacity, they're never going to learn. They're never going to know they can't cross that line, and they're going to continue taking from you.
Mhm.
I
Well,
hope one day we win. But
yeah, definitely. Also, we have got to start winning, even though you've got an unethical attorney. I mean, we're talking totally unethical, and you
Mhm.
report them to the U.S. Supreme Court Disciplinary Board. They
Yeah,
give
fair
you
enough.
a lackadaisical letter,
Mhm.
and that they're looking into the matter, and then probably 4 weeks later, you'll get a letter saying it wasn't unethical enough.
It's because they're all in on it. They all benefit from the scheme. It's a ladder. So the only way you can win, like if you like win-win, is to pack your court and then make sure your court has open doors, and go up and ask for the doors to, like, go up to your appellate courts and ask the lower courts to open their doors if they attempt to lock it. Stand in the courthouse lobby, fill the parking lot, and the judge he will stay within the law. Now, when I say that, I'm not asking for anything special. I'm just asking for them to follow the law. That's all I ever wanted. And I never got that once. And nobody has in Beloud, nobody.
The thing is, they also pull these judges out of retirement and pay them 2 salaries.
I know. Yeah, nobody understands that either. They pay them a retirement salary and they pay them a regular salary, and they get both at the same time. And whether they're competent or not, they stay on the stand. I have to say, South Carolina is really leading the way, because we have been so loud in South Carolina, and we have a couple loud members through here that twice, 2 years in a row, the State House during judge elections has gotten up and walked out. And they refused to rule or elect because they were such bad picks. But then again, at the end of the day, they're still in there, because who else are they going to pick? Instead of just firing them all and starting again. I don't get it.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, look at West Virginia. When they found out their Supreme Court was completely corrupt, they fired them all and they started again. Why can they do it and we can't? I don't get that. Get rid of them. They don't, I mean, you can't even at this point, there is no slaps on the hands. There's no fines. They have gone over and above. It's either life in prison or get out.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's pathetic. They just don't move. They just, I mean, I don't know how was that West Virginia, you said, or was
West
able
Virginia,
to get rid of them? Yeah, I don't know. It's just so frustrating.
That's checks and balances. There you have a legislator that was not afraid of their Supreme Court. And you had a team of legislators that was not afraid. Our legislators put their heads up their butts and go hide in their back office. And it's like,
right.
What are you doing? I mean, do you feel like a man?
Yeah, right.
I just confront. And I mean, people just run from me. They don't answer phones for me, because I don't tread nicely.
No, I don't either. No.
And I tell them, I'm not here to make friends. I'm here for you to follow the law. Because everybody tells me you need to make friends. I don't need these friends. I don't want them as friends. We're not going to meet up, and I'm never going to say hi nice to you. You need to do what you're supposed to be doing, and you need to follow the law.
And it's just so simple. Just follow the law. Do your job.
I had a judge Peter Fuge, which we got removed. He was the one that stood on the bench and said, we are not going to hear Title 64 today in South Carolina State Court. And I said, this court is founded on Title 64, sir. So what do you plan to talk about? Are you feeling okay?
Right.
How delusional are you? This is an easy appeal. Why would you be doing this? It's crazy. If they don't even hide it.
No. In fact, a parent will be in front of a judge that's, say, in his 60s, and this judge will be talking about 3 different things at the same time, which is what kind of happened to me. I'm thinking, are you okay up there? Like, should you be drug tested? I really think be.
Mine was writing a grocery list, because when you could get on the stand to see him, I could see what he was doing. He was running a grocery list. And I said, are you writing a grocery list? And I'm funny, because I'll just say it. Sir, pay attention.
Yeah.
With all respect. And that's how you have to be, though. You have to call them out in the courtroom.
Mm-hmm. I also think parents should look at the first, second, all these amendments, at least brush up on them. And
here's a good idea, because that is a good point. A lot of parents cannot swallow that information because they have PTSD. So did I. In the beginning, I was I don't know how I wasn't put in jail, but thank God I wasn't. I would come in with a binder full of law books. So I would have South Carolina law and federal law, and I would turn the binder towards the judge. And so when he would say, well, in this court, we're following this law and this is the law. And I would go, okay, sir, hold on. And I'm like, no. You're not a legislator, sir. You can't enact law here. But that's how you have to be. And then they start to withdraw because you're confronting them and they don't know what to do.
Mm-hmm.
Mhm.
Well, and if you confront some of these judges, they'll say, well, I'm going to send you to the sheriff's office. I mean, they'll say it right there.
And
Yeah.
I always say to them, Your Honor, am I in a civil court or am I in a criminal court? I said, if I'm a civil court, I have 10 days to remedy anything that happens in this court before you can put me in jail, Your Honor. I
Mm-hmm.
wish to uphold my right or I will sue you for false imprisonment. And the bailiff will sit back down.
Well, I wish I would have known you back in
I
2015.
know, but these are the things I try to teach parents, so that you got to intimidate that judge back. And it's so sad because I just want to go in and just be a good person. And I can't be a good person. I have to be mean, aggressive, and constantly shut down the judge. And it's
Mhm.
terrible, but that's how you win a court case that you're supposed to win under the law.
Yeah, plain and simple. It just do their jobs, and they're not doing it because they're in their social clubs and they're discussing your case the night before and how it's going to go and how they're going
It's
to shut
already,
it down.
it's already determined. I caught them doing it. I caught the bailiff talking to the other party, and they were on the side of the courthouse. And I said, what are you talking about? And I already heard what they said. And he goes, nothing. And I go, so this is how the court's going to go. You said, and this is how I'm going to lose today. And you're telling her how to act because she doesn't want to act surprised or, give anything away. I said, I already know it's predetermined, but thanks for, confirming that.
Mm-hmm. Wow. These people are disgusting.
They don't hide it because there's no repercussions. I brought up that bailiff, running affidavits and complaints. Nothing ever happened. I went after the Gavel. They refused to enforce my motion against the Gavel. And she goes, if you continue to talk about me, I'm going to file against you. Ooh. So I kept talking about her. She never filed against me. If it's just talk, you just keep being loud, don't lie, stick to what actually happened so they can't get to you, and keep all your documents and just keep going, bam, no, I have it, bam. And that's what I did. And eventually, guess what? They ran away.
Mm-hmm.
It's the only way to do it because unless they're a lawyer, I can't teach them fast enough what to do in a courtroom.
Right. Yeah. I think some of these parents, like you said, have PTSD.
Mm-hmm.
And they're going, by themselves. And sometimes you just can't get people to go with you to be court watchers.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes you can, sometimes you can't. Their friends work full time, whatever. But they just go in there and get more verbally abused and threatened.
Oh yeah. I was told if I continue to tell the truth, they'll take my daughter away. So my friend signed up to be a foster parent, and we said, try it. And then I lined up 9 people to take her. And he said, if you do that, you'll go to jail. All right. You could go after the next one, the next one, the next one, and we're just going to keep a line. I brought in the whole town against that judge. I went business to business, and people mostly already knew. I mean, it wasn't something that was not unsaid, actually. I was surprised. Then when the filings kept being lost, I pinned the UPS store against the court. I said I wanted a refund, so the UPS store went after the courthouse for hiding filings. And then I pinned South Carolina law against Beaufort County courts because I said I want my money back because what you said were the laws aren't the laws. So who's lying here? Well, we're talking about money, so we're going to get involved. So you have to take big misses and throw it at them. I was just left and right, and I kept hitting them. You can't hit them once by a little affidavit that you filed in the court or a complaint. You got to hit them and hit them and hit them and hit them. But everything that I did was true and correct.
Mm-hmm. I've had some parents tell me, their spouse just can't go in there by themselves. They're just not emotionally able to do it. So they had to find an attorney, and hope for the best.
Well, I couldn't emotionally do it either. I remember talking to one advocate lawyer. I said, I can't go to courtroom again. She's like, you're going to have to. I said, no, I can't. I said, I can't do it. And I know I've said it before, but see, I was that parent, and see, I got in that courtroom, but I educated myself. And some of them have to get off their butts. And I mean this in a nice way. Remember, I'm a trainer too.
Yeah, right.
And you have to go get a paralegal degree, a paralegal certificate. I know it's hard. You don't have money. There's tons of programs. I didn't pay for my paralegal certificate. I didn't pay when I went on programs.
Mm-hmm.
There's tons of programs. You're going to have to dig and file and do research. And for some reason, they don't want to. I don't know if they're lazy, and I hate using that word because they're traumatized, but It's a life. See, Olivia's a life. It's not a used car.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I'm going to get past what I have going on with me because my life doesn't matter. Hers does. What
Mm-hmm.
I'm going through, no sleep, dry, I don't care. Her life does, not mine.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know how to instill that in them. I try though, but it's my greatest challenge as a trainer is to motivate a PTS victim in family
Mm-hmm.
court.
Well, I mean, even though you have PTSD, you've got to rise above it and get
I have
over
to,
it.
yeah.
And if you have to go to a counselor, I mean, sometimes you have to take maybe an anti-anxiety medication if that's
Mm-hmm.
what will help. You do what you have to do so you can go in there. And like you said, if we keep hiring attorneys, especially in the family law industry,
Yes.
you're just going to get taken for your money.
That's right. They won't help. They're once in a blue moon, you're going to find somebody. But I had called 200 something attorneys. I even forgot. I have it written down in South Carolina. And I found out that what they do, and they could come after me all they want on this, because I had lawyers tell me, they put your name on a memo. Do not help this person. And they send it out to their directory. I mean, it's crazy the stuff they do. Do not
Mm-hmm.
let this person hire you. And what's funny is they thought that I really wanted to hire them, these lawyers. So they act all cocky, like we can't take you to, they had no idea that I was just using them to see what was going on and using what they said against them.
Mm-hmm. I kind of did that too. In my
Yeah.
case, I just didn't want a GAL or a GAL assigned. So what I did was I just went to every attorney's office in town. That way that created a conflict of interest.
Yeah. So you have to play the game. That's
Right.
perfect. I love it. And I mean, I've had them say to me, well, I'm going to find an attorney to come after you. I said, do you want a list so you know who's not a conflict of interest at this point? Because after me going after judges and stuff and lawyers, I don't know who's left. And then he called, I guess, his lawyer and found out that it's a conflict of interest. He didn't know what to do. So that's the only way to do it. But you have to play these games because the law doesn't work and nor do police help you. I was on the phone with a gentleman that was using me. And he said, they're at my house to take away my son. My wife's going to abuse him. So I said, he can't. And I forget what state it was. And I stated the law says that they cannot intervene. Well, they said that they can't. I said, only if there's abuse on your end. Tell them to show them a document that says abuse on your end. There was no such document. I said, then they can't touch him. And tell them we'll sue them in federal court for abuse of authority. And he goes, well, I'm going to arrest you. Da, da, da. And I got on the phone with him. I said, what is your name? Because I'm going to call the police on you, sir, for violating the law. And they left him alone. But here this little kid was going to get abused by his parent, his mom, and they were after him.
Mm-hmm.
What? Under the law, every state, you have a right that if your ex comes to the door to take your child on visitation and he's disgruntled, drunk, dangerous, mean, you do not have to give your child. So it's
Right.
a law. So when this police officer was trying to do this, I was floored. I'm like, thank you, God, and the laws, because they don't care. They don't care.
Mm-mm. Not at all. And I think some parents are just even afraid to open the mail. I was working with
Mm-hmm.
one person and she says, I just get an envelope from the courthouse. I can't even stand to look at it. So I just throw it in the trash. I'm like, you've got to read this stuff. You have to know
It's
what
too
they're going to
hard.
pull. Mm-hmm.
Litigation, that's a litigation abuse syndrome. I have that. And I would get a letter in the mail and I would hold it. Now my will is really strong and I don't know why God gave me that, but I do. And I'm holding it. I'm like, Jackie, stop it. You're being stupid. Open the friggin' letter. And then I'll open the letter. But my heart's I've taken my heart rate once. It was 188 beats. It was litigation abuse syndrome. That's what they have.
Mm-hmm.
And somehow you just have to overcome it. I would just talk myself out of it. Now I just open the letter. But what they're saying on the letter is usually misconstrued it, and because it's litigation abuse, they can't handle that misconstrued. Like they can't handle that.
No. Yeah, it's just, I was trying to get her to open her mail. I don't know if she ever did. I don't know whatever happened to her. It's just, I remember telling a judge that I had legal abuse PTSD. And she sat back and said, what's that?
Yeah, if they don't even care. You just have to get ahead of people when you're in the courtroom and stuff. And it's hard. Like I hired a therapist that was a forensic therapist. So I had a court document saying that I had it and it was caused by my ex and you. And so it was a legal document.
Mm-hmm.
I just stayed ahead of them. You have to pre-think about what angle your ex is going to take and what angle the court's going to take. It's not you against him. It's you against the court and the opposing counsel. And
Mm-hmm.
if you're ahead of them, they'll go away. And I just stayed ahead of them. It's really hard. It's a lot of work. I missed a lot of nights of sleep. But again, she's a baby. I'm an adult. It's my job.
Mm-hmm.
It's our job as parents.
Then what do you do with the opposing side when they say, well, you're being litigious and vexatious?
Like I said, I have a forensic therapist. I got a high one. Like this one was the head of a school. And he headed up a lot of psychiatric development centers. So he was pretty powerful. So if you want to go against him, go right ahead. I said, we're welcome to bring him in here. He could sit on that stand and I love him to pick apart you. We'll do it. And they'll go, no, because they're lying. They're the ones lying and they're afraid because when you have an impartial or an impartial therapist, they're going to get found out.
Mm-hmm.
Don't use any therapist that's court appointed. Don't use any therapist that lives near the courts. I mean, I have one guy here that I pressured and he came out and said that he was forced to falsify his words on the stand. Hundreds of cases. Mm-hmm.
Oh, what did they end up doing with him? Probably nothing.
Nobody cares. Nobody cares. Isn't that crazy?
Yeah.
That seems to be the trend of our nation. Nobody cares.
Mm-mm.
They can kill a person right in front of you. Well, he's so-and-so. It's crazy. I had one parent said to me, well, if he kills your child, he'll go to jail for murder. I go, no, he won't. I said, don't you sleep at night thinking that'll happen.
Yeah, people think unless they go through it themselves, then they'll get it.
I said, no, he'll be fine. And he'll be without the child he never wanted. So
yeah, they don't care. They just don't care.
Mm-hmm.
And here your child's life is hanging in the balance.
I know.
And you've got a judge that maybe wants to get out and go golfing really quick, you know?
It's not even about that. They know what your child's worth, and they know false rulings will cause millions and millions of dollars on your end. By going to school for law or just going to school for being a paralegal, I switched the roles. I barely paid anything. He was over $1 million trying to chase me. Just switch the roles. It's the only way to win because they'll get tired. When they run out of money or they get tired of it, they're pretty soon going to ask themselves, what am I spending all this money for? I don't want her. He never wanted her. They eventually stop. It's the only way you're going to win is switching the tables.
Mm-hmm. Start exhausting your enemy.
Being loud, making it everybody's just, I had people, when my friend would watch my child, when I had to go away seminars, I had about 20 to 30 people in the town, not the state, in the town, sending me pictures of my child with this man who was a good friend of mine that she knows very well, and saying, is this your ex? Is that him? Do you want me to take the child back? It was great. I'm like, no, he's fine, but let's not do that. Just call me if you ever see it. Don't get physical.
Oh my gosh.
But that's great because he knew that everybody was watching him, and it was the only way I could keep my child safe.
Mm-hmm. Well, I would go into court and we had this cantankerous fellow and I would stand my ground. And I, the opposing attorney said, so you wrote you wrote me up, you wrote my wife up, you wrote this attorney up, that one. He said, you're going to write me up today? I said, well, we'll see how it goes.
Yeah. Yeah. You know what I said to them? Because they said, I bet you're just going to, my ex-opposing counsel said, I guess you're just going to appeal this too. I go, well, yeah, if it's not legal.
Right.
But I said, and he goes, well, you need to stop talking about us. You need to stop, going on Facebook. And I go, well, how about this? How about the criminal stops being a criminal? And then the victim won't have to say anything. I said, right. I don't know. I think it'll work.
It just, we had just gone through so much litigation It was
Mhm.
ridiculous.
Oh, yeah.
And it was to the point where, well, okay, the judge actually died.
Oh, wow. Okay.
I was holding my ground with him. I was, you know, just standing my ground. And then I get a phone call as I was shopping for or just looking around the mall. My friend called me and said, the judge died. And I actually got down on my knees in the mall in front of everyone. I said, "Praise you, Jesus." Then I called my current husband and I said, "Call my children and let them know." And they were so happy.
It's terrible. These guys are monsters. And I could see it now, like, the other side of it, they're going to come after us and be like, they said we're monsters. We're here trying to help children and da, 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 da.
Mhm,
I mean, I have asked a judge once, do you actually believe your own BS? I'm like,
mhm,
do you sit home at night and go, man, I really did a good job? I mean, I just want to know just for my own comfort level.
mhm,
And he goes, do you think you're funny? I said, well, I'm very good with sarcasm, but I'm not using sarcasm.
mhm, mhm.
He just looked at me. I'm like, I'm waiting for an answer. Do you go home at night and go, yeah, I really did good in court today? Or do you go home and go, I made $5,000 off that child. I made $25,000 off. He goes, Miss Pidanick, that's enough. I go, no, I'm not done yet. So I made $30,000 off of that child. I go, what do you go home and do? Because eventually you have so much money and you're 75. What are you going to do with it?
Mhm.
You can't take it to hell with you because you're not going to heaven. I mean, what are you going to do? He never answered me. And I bet I got him. I bet he went home and counted how much money he made off his children. And I made him think about it. And I hopefully, that got to him because I wanted to get to him. I wanted him not to sleep that night.
Well, I have a funny story, and I wish I had it on tape, with your phone. I just wish I did. But it was my son's birthday. So he had a bunch of friends over, and we're singing happy birthday, just the normal happy birthday song. All of a sudden, he blurts out, "I hate my dad's big, fat, ugly attorney, and I'm so glad the judge died." And
Yay.
I'm looking at my phone going, "I didn't have this tape." I was like, I just completely, and my husband was out of town, so he couldn't enjoy that moment.
Mhm. I just
Yeah.
don't get the draw of this because, when my ex beat up my 8-week-old daughter, I'm going to say mine, it's our 8-week-old daughter, but when he did that, he looked at me and he said, if you don't tell anybody, you can have a good life because he's a millionaire. You could have a good life. You can have all the money you want. And I said to him, I'll live in a box.
Mhm.
You could I don't need your money. I don't know why judges don't have an ethical basing of just their internal self-law. And there's got to be one, but they're all like that. It's like, how are you all like that?
I
How are you all like, oh yeah, I'm good with it. I'm just gonna let that one die. Get 5,000 off that one. That one's 25. Man, if I could pull that hearing one more day, we get another 50,000 off that one. That's exactly what they do because I've read their emails.
don't. Mhm. Oh, that's
I'll testify to
disgusting.
that.
Yeah. Yeah.
But nobody cares. If I mean, I've told this before. I've showed emails before. Nobody cares.
Mhm. And I talk
No.
to parents, and all I can say is, "I'm so sorry." When you talk
Mhm.
to people, oh gosh, yeah, it's just so sad.
I just pin people against them. Get the whole town, walk door to door. You tell everybody you know. I went to like the most wealthiest people in my neighborhood and who I was training, and I
Mhm.
told them, and a lot of them supported me. And so I was like, "There you go." I'm like, "Are you going to get that money now when you run next time?"
Mhm.
Nope. And that I hit them right where it counts. The money, the law schools, the filing centers. I hit them right where it counts.
Mhm.
And that's the only way I mean, it's so sad. I mean, because I was not vindictive. My life, I was always the nice one that cared about people, bubbly, happy, did everything I could for everybody. And I feel like I have to think like a criminal almost. Not that I'm a criminal, but think okay, he's going to
Mhm.
probably do this, so I should do this, and I should cut him off. I mean, well, how is that
Mhm.
okay with these judges? I mean,
Mhm.
I don't get it.
Mhm.
Just because you want $5,000 for my daughter's head,
Mhm.
it's sick.
Well,
It's definitely sickness.
yeah, and they don't even read exhibits or evidence either.
No, they create their own. They create their own. They
Yeah.
say something exists, or they write on the back of a piece of paper and they hand it back and forth to the other attorney, so they're both on the same page. They change transcripts. They lose your evidence. They don't file whatever you send. They take stuff out of your filings. They create hearings that never happened. I caught one that there was a filing in my file of a hearing. So I played the part of, let's find the court reporter. And I said, oh, court reporter, can I have the transcript of that day? Because you're on the hearing, thing. She goes to me, or the order. Oh, what date was that? So I gave her the date. And she goes, no, I wasn't in the courthouse that day. I was like, oh, can you check the docket? Maybe I got the date wrong. No, she said there was no hearings that day. Really? And that's what I did. And then I have it all on email. And then I sent that into the appellate courts in the Supreme Court of the United States.
Good for you. Good for you.
But you have to do that.
You are a fighter. You are a serious champion.
It's a life, it's not a used car. It's a life. You kind of find a way to do it. And if I could pass that to parents, man, I would. I don't know how. It's just, to me, it's a life. It's a child. I would do this for your child. This is why I started Beloud. I help people. If there was a baby in the street once, seriously, a baby in the street, 2 years old, walking down the street. So I took my car around it so no car would hit it. And I picked it up. And right when I picked up my head holding this poor child, a cop ran to me and she goes, is that your baby? I said, it is now.
Yeah, right.
So I guess I find it in my heart as it's our job as adults, but I don't know if the population feels that way.
Is there anything, I don't want to wear out your voice, but is there any last comments you'd like to make?
Stand your ground with the police. I mean, I've had them come to my house and tell me I can't write stuff about the judge. And I said, I have a First Amendment right. I said, you are the wrong jurisdiction to be telling me that. Go get an FBI agent. Have a good day. Stand your grounds. Make sure you know the laws. Go get your paralegal certificate. There's no other way. Unfortunately, there's not. And you can hire everybody to your blue in the face. They're not going to do what you need them to do. They're not, because they're too afraid of their own life, their own career, and the judge will ruin it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And the thing is, as a pro se, you know your case better than anyone else.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And just some studying, and buy Black's Law Dictionary, and you'll be on your way.
Take everything to the courthouse, take all the laws to the courthouse, and as that judge spits out laws, look them up and read the law back. Do not let him tell you to be quiet. And if he tells you to be quiet, you go, Your Honor, you've broken my constitutional rights. I wish not to go on with this hearing. He'll say, take the bench, because he wants to manipulate you. Your Honor, you've broken my constitutional right. I wish you not to go on with this hearing. They'll try to arrest you. Say, Your Honor, I'm not in a criminal court. You cannot arrest me. I have 10 days to appeal anything that comes out of this court. He'll say, well, you need to answer the question. Your Honor, you've broken my constitutional rights. I wish not to go on this hearing. He rolls his eyes. Go, honorable court reporter, the honorable judge has now become biased. I wish, they'll throw you right out of the court so fast your head will spin. I mean, that's a defense I can give anybody, because you just have to remember a few phrases. And I guarantee you, if you're in the same situation I was in, there's tons of reasons why to say it.
Mm-hmm. Definitely.
But that's the only way you can do it.
Well, how can parents reach you, or anyone reach you?
Facebook is the best way. I use Facebook as a blog for Beloud. That way so many people can see us, and you don't have to go to a website. So if you just type in hashtag Beloud on Facebook, you'll find me. We have tons of groups, and it'll lead right to my name.
Mm-hmm. I'm so glad you started that. That's excellent.
Thank you.
Okay, well, I'd like to have you back on.
Absolutely.
And we'll talk some more about corruption and other mechanisms of such.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Well, Slam the Gavel is a podcast to help the public understand what really goes on in the family courtrooms that in turn perpetuate parental alienation. I'm your host, Marianne Petrie, author of Dismantling Family Court Corruption, Why Taking the Kids Was Not Enough, and Cry Out for Justice, Poems of Truth. And please join us again with Jacqueline and other guests. So I thank you, Jacqueline. Thank you.
Thank you. It was a pleasure.